My name is Barry Hanson. I'm a senior sales representative here at Summit Racing Equipment in Arlington, Texas, and this is my 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. I've always loved this car, and in '69 and '70, of course, they tore up the stock car tracks. First year it was out, it won the championship, and I always thought it was a great car, and I was always kind of on the lookout for it. Never thought I could afford one. A buddy of mine was stationed down in Foothood, Texas, and his girlfriend lived next door to me. So he came home on leave one day and to visit her, and he came over and says, "By the way, there's one of those cars that you always liked down in the used car lot." So I grabbed my dad and went down there and found it, dicked it with the guy, traded in a '64 Dodge Dart and some money, and brought this home. Had it ever since. And there was always a big rivalry with me and my friends in high school, the Chevy guys, the Ford guys. I was the Mopar guy. And I really liked the Darts best. I really wasn't crazy about the full-size Charger. A light car with a big engine was faster. But then this version came out, and I just fell in love with it. It drives straight and true. You don't get any crosswinds. You got a couple semi-trailers go around you. You don't feel the swish of the air or anything like that. If it's stormy or blowing, it just cuts right through it. You don't get any gusts or anything. As opposed to, we have a little Jeep Wrangler, and boy, in a good wind, it'll be all over the road. It's a handful. So this thing just goes on. I mean, you can be driving 100 miles an hour with the windows down, one hand on the wheel, and just go straight and true. The wing and the nose are both original to the car. They were put on, especially when they made these cars, they built the car about 3/4 of the way on a regular production assembly line, took them off the assembly line, run them across Detroit to a special place, put the nose, the tail, and the plug in the rear window. So they were halfway handmade. And they made about 507 of them is what the last count I heard. Originally, again, it was a 440 Magnum engine, single 4-barrel. I think they advertised 375 horsepower, had the Magnum cylinder heads on it and the Magnum camshaft, big old Carter thermoquad carburetor on it. One of the first things I did was got rid of that and put a Holley carburetor on it. One of the best things I ever did. Had several Holleys on it, love Holley carburetors. A couple of years after I had it, Chrysler came out with a series of camshaft called the Purple Stripe or the Hemi Grind. So I put a Purple Stripe camshaft in it, and that kicked it up a little bit more. Headers on it. Used the same cylinder heads for a long time. They were the open chambers. Everybody liked the closed chambers from '67 440s. This is the '69. It had the open chamber heads. You weren't quite so picky on gasoline. Of course, back then we could get premium ethyl gas. So I used those open chamber heads, and it still ran great. I've never had it dyno tested, and I never will have any of my cars dyno tested, because that way I'd have to stop lying about how much horsepower it really does. But they were saying that when I had it at its best, back in the late '70s, it's probably pushing about 525 horsepower. It's got the great torsion bar suspension, so I didn't mess with that. A lot of people don't like it, but I think it's great. And it's got the super stock rear springs, 5.5 leafs on one side, 5 on the other for the torque. So basically, a good set of shocks. By the way, Summit brand, 3-way, front drag shocks in the front. Right now they're 50/50s, but I can go to the track or whatever, click them in the 90/10s, get some nice weight transfer, have some fun with it. Air shocks, good old Gabriel hijacker air shocks. Back in the '60s, you always had to have your Gabriels. One of the best things I've done, and I tell all my customers one of the best things they can do, I put front disc brakes on it. It had drum brakes all the way around. This is a 170-mile-an-hour car, and it had drum brakes on it, manual drum brakes. And they were what I call fade easies. You could override them so easy. Several times I got out in the middle of an intersection, stopping long, and it was just flat dangerous and not fun to drive. So I put front disc brakes on it, and that was one of the best upgrades I ever did. The color you see now is Hemi Orange. Guy was opening a new body shop, and he wanted to paint it for me, and he said he'd do me a good job. And I didn't check on the paint match. It says match the paint. Well, he saw orange instead of the R4 red, so it's Hemi Orange. It will eventually be put back to the R4 Charger red. Got these reproduction factory Mopar Magnum 500 wheels, in fact, from Summit. So I had a set of aluminum slots on it for a long time, but these are reproduction factory wheels, which I think really sets it off. A lot of controversy about these. What Chrysler told people was that there was a cutout in the fender so that the car could sink lower and tires could go up in the fender. And that was completely wrong. They got these little scoops and there's an open hole in there so the high pressure air can bleed out, the front end doesn't lift. A regular Charger, 68, 69 Charger, has a bad habit of lifting at about 110, 120 miles an hour. That was a handful in NASCAR when they were hitting 170, 180. So this bleeds out the air and it just settles down real nice. There's no way a tire could go up in there, but that's what they told people and people bought it. But you look up in there and you can see. I've been a Summit customer since the mid-70s. I have some receipts from back in the 70s. When I was driving by one day, they had a big sign up, one of those electronic signs that said Summit is coming. I found out where, and there was an article in the paper, and I got to read about it, and thought this is going to be great having Summit racing in our backyard. Then they had an open call for employment, and I answered the call and got hired, and it's been great. I've loved every minute of it. This is a great place to work. I mean, I get paid for talking hot rods to people all day. What's not to like? I'm a senior sales representative. I work the sales counter. So I greet the people when they hit the counter and help them out. And if they have any problems after that, I'll help them, walk them over to the customer service department or cashiers, make sure everything goes smoothly. And if I have any follow-up problems or questions. Being a hot rodder all my life and an enthusiast, I think, has helped me greatly being a Summit salesman and helping the customers. I'm very familiar with most of the stuff. I'm an old school car guy, so I know the old stuff especially. All my years of experience and hands-on and reading and education has really helped me. I can pretty much narrow down and figure out what the customer wants, give them a couple different options, and we can settle on the best. But yeah, experience has been a big plus. I know I'm making a bunch of happy customers.